Welcome to the Fantasy Champions Fantasy Football Podcast. Here's your host, Morgan Colby and Rick Lemon.
What's going on, Fantasy Champs? My name is Morgan Colby. I got Rick Lemon with me as always. Football. Football's back.
Football is back.
You know, I'll say this. I had the Patriots got their faces ripped off, which, you know, anticipated. Played Dolphins week 1. Pretty much happens every year. New annual tradition.
Yep.
Yeah. And
fortunately.
You know, I mean, last year I would say we probably should have won, but Damian Harris fumbled in the red zone.
Yeah, you could hold last year up and say shoulda, coulda, woulda.
Today, no. Yesterday, no. That's not even close to a thing. And I was 2 of 7 in my fantasy leagues. Not great.
Wow.
Not good. One
That's
league
really
I'm
bad.
tanking in, so
Doesn't really count.
that one doesn't count.
I went 5-3.
There you go, bud.
Technically, 5-4. But again, I'm tanking in one of those leagues. I started like Corey Davis and Kenny Golladay. So in the leagues that I'm actually trying in, I went 5-3. You know what's funny?
Yeah.
Is it's the same leagues last year that I lost it.
Shoot.
The home league, lost. 10-man band, the dynasty league that we're in, that I'm always like, last year I was in the top 5 in scoring and missed the playoffs.
Yeah.
Guess what? I was like the 4th highest scoring team this week, lost.
Lost. Yeah, that's how it works.
But
that's how it
every
works.
other league pretty much got the dub.
But I was gonna say, so yesterday was a pretty horrible, uneventful day for myself in terms of fantasy football and real football rooting interests. But football is fantastic.
Yeah.
I missed it. There was one catch that I wish was a catch by Jamar Chase.
That one-hander.
It's ridiculous. I literally stood up out of my chair, scared the hell out of my entire family.
He still got touchdown that drive, though.
He did. So anyway, football's back. Very, very excited. With football being back, that also means that the fantasy football season has officially completely and utterly become underway.
Mm-hmm.
Rick and I are recording this on Tuesday afternoon, so there is another football game, Denver Broncos, Seattle Seahawks. So be sure to watch that one if you didn't, and check out any guys or any eventful things that happened in the game and apply.
Should we call our shots now, even though it's people are going to see this and call us idiots?
Okay,
Broncos country.
let's ride.
Let's ride. That's all I'm saying about that.
Yeah, the Broncos are probably going to win the football game. I thought you meant like waiver wire shots, but
Oh no,
yeah, my brain can't do that on the fly, dude.
definitely not.
But anyway, we're going to talk about waiver wires for week 2 and start our weekly production of content for you guys, and try to bring you the advice you need on a week-to-week basis during the fantasy football season to help you have success. And I just got some news about Mac Jones, so I'm going to look at it right now. Mac
Well,
Jones.
you tell me, is it good news, bad news? Is it
Mac Jones is suffering from back spasms. X-rays were negative. There's a chance Jones plays this Sunday. Why would you say
there's
that,
a chance he
Rappaport?
doesn't?
Why would you say that, Rappaport? That means there's a chance he doesn't.
Yeah.
God, if I have to watch
Dude,
Hoyer, I'm not watching.
If it's Hoyer, yeah, I'm legit gonna watch Sunday Ticket. I will not watch the Patriots get their butts kicked by the Steelers.
But anyway, we got the waiver wire rankings today that we're going to give you, or not rankings, but waiver wire targets for this week that you guys should be going after going into week 2. The early portion of the schedule for waiver wire is super important. So before we do that, check out our website, fantasychampions.com. Follow us on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, or any of the podcast platforms, please leave a review. Share this podcast with your friends. If you're watching on YouTube, subscribe, click the bell for notifications, comment down below any waiver wire questions you have. You're concerned about dropping a certain player, just ask the question. We'll tell you whether or not to drop them, and ask away anything fantasy football related. Fantasy football related. We already got yelled at in the comments during the offseason about me talking about my personal life, so.
Yeah, so personal life, absolutely not.
Absolutely.
Life advice, no.
Yeah.
But starts or sits, go right ahead.
Yeah. So for the waiver wires, like I said, this early season is, sometimes later in the season you get an injury to a, big superstar running back and they have a good handcuff and you can kind of tie that handcuff to the player and try to get some production out of them. Alexander Mattison, great example of that. But I think the early season part of the waiver wire is really important and really crucial because you sometimes get a player that outperforms and outproduces and has a really, really big week one. I remember Rick brought up on the previous show where we talked about some waiver wire targets for week one that you might be going after going into week two. Rick mentioned James Robinson as a breakout running back coming off the waiver wires a couple years ago.
Yeah, his rookie year. So week 1, 2, 3, 4, that's typically like advice I give you in the first 4 weeks is dump the waiver budget. If you get later in the season and a starting running back gets hurt and you don't have any waiver budget left, you want that guy, then you're not going to get him. But at the end of the day, that player's not going to turn out to be that great anyway. But anyway, so these early waiver wire shows are really good. How it's essentially going to be structured, we'll go position by positions, quarterback, running back, wide receiver, tight end. Maybe we should just do quarterback, tight end, and get the ugly part out of the way and then talk about the meat and potatoes, which is the running back, wide receiver portion. But anyway, we'll go position by position and give you our top waiver wire targets of the week. And I think, Rick, what do you say we change it up? Because last year we just talked about a bunch of randos. Okay.
So how about we take one, maybe we should do two. No, one player each.
Okay.
That we would target at each position. And then if there's any other players we want to throw in there, we can.
Let's do it.
After. So one solid, like...
some honorable mentions after.
Yes, honorable mentions. But one guy that we would definitely take at a position. So let's start with the quarterback position. Rick, why don't you kick us off? What quarterback, whether you're streaming or you're into I remember like 4 years ago, maybe 3 years ago, Dak was on the waivers, and it was Dak's big like top 5 season, and I picked him up. So whether it's a streaming option for the week or a breakout quarterback, which guy are you targeting?
Speaking of Dak, you're probably listening to this portion of our podcast because you had Dak on your team, and now he's out. Correct. I think 6 to 8 weeks, right?
I gotta start.
Yeah. So now I'm not going to say this guy's streaming because this week he doesn't have a great matchup. Mm-hmm. But for the next 6 to 8 weeks of every quarterback available, I think you got to go Jameis Winston. He started off really slow against the Falcons, and he turned it on. But he had in our league, I think, is our league a 6-point touchdown, 5-point touchdown? Let me look at it differently because I was about to say a number that I don't know if he actually got.
5-point touchdown. It's 5 points.
It is a 5. So I think it's a little less than in a 4-point. Yeah, 21 in a 4-point. He had 21 fantasy points versus Atlanta, which is very good. And I think every decent matchup Winston is going to get, he's probably going to put up about those numbers. He's got a ridiculously good receiving core: Jarvis Landry, Chris Olave, and Michael Thomas, who is now healthy. With Alvin Kamara in the backfield, he has a lot of talent on that team. And I think we talked about in the offseason, like he's a guy that could be a surprise at the quarterback position because of that. And I wouldn't start him every week. Again, if I'm streaming, I would go in a different direction. But if you need a quarterback to pick up, it's Jameis Winston. I think he showed this week that he's not going to be a guy who gets you 30 fantasy points. But if you need a quarterback to just slot in there, get you 18 to 20, 22, 23, I think he could do that on a week-to-week basis, which is hard to do with the guys available, especially if you're in like a 12 team.
Yeah, that's a good one. The Saints started off slow in that game.
They did, very slow. I think Winston only had like 50 passing yards in the first half.
Right. But Winston. I think if I had a target and I was picking first, I probably would take Winston too, just because there's upside with his game. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I mean, 23 fantasy points against Atlanta. We'll see if he can produce against Tampa. But this was a really good game for him. So 269, 2 touchdowns. This wasn't like last year where he had 100 passing yards and 5 touchdowns. Where you're like, all right, is this guy actually going to be productive? If he plays like this the whole season, there could be some good upside to have Jameis Winston on your team. Now, quickly, Rick, obviously you're picking him up in case there's that, not breakout, but he's back to Jameis Winston on the Bucks where he was actually productive for fantasy football.
Yeah.
But if you lost, what's his name this week, Dak Prescott, would you want to start Jameis Winston against Tampa?
I have other guys that I consider. Honestly, if you lost Dak, you put him in your IR spot. I wouldn't mind picking up Winston and then maybe somebody else to stream just for this week because I don't love that matchup against Tampa.
Yeah. Okay. Makes sense. Let's move to another slot for.
You want to just do it like that?
No.
Or are you gonna have your own guy?
I got my own guy.
Okay.
My brain was like searching through Sleeper as I freaking.
You're just gonna move on without saying anything.
Sorry.
Because I have another guy that I would stream, but I don't know if you're gonna say it.
So there's another interesting player on the waivers, and I think he's probably the next best guy available, and I'm kind of curious on Rick's thoughts about this particular player. But he had just as good a week as Jameis Winston. Same age, so old as dirt, and has had many opportunities to have success in the
28's
NFL.
not that old.
And but for a quarterback who was, I guess both these guys were supposed to be good in the NFL, and they're not. But anyway, it is he's rostered in 15% of leagues, and it's Carson Wentz. I was gonna say Matt Ryan, but I think Matt Ryan's streamable. Carson Wentz is so interesting, and I don't want to be like target him, and I wouldn't dump a lot of waiver budget. I don't think it's going to take a lot to get him. But just in the off chance that Carson Wentz ends up being Carson Wentz of old when he was actually good for fantasy football, I would take him if you have an extra roster spot because somebody got hurt. I would take him, throw him on your bench if you need a quarterback. He had 313 passing yards, 4 touchdowns in the game against Jacksonville, which obviously is against Jacksonville. Next week he has Detroit. So that would be a startable week for him as well. 29 fantasy points total on the week. I don't expect this on a week-to-week basis, but is there a chance that Carson Wentz could be a guy that gets you 20 fantasy points, every couple weeks or as a stream? Yes.
Yeah.
So yeah. I don't mind him, but I think I want to get your thoughts, Rick, on Carson Wentz.
Yeah, I agree. I don't like him long term, which is why I would say to pick up Winston. I think Wentz will fall apart. And as the season goes on, he has some tougher games. Yeah. But yeah, 29 points against Jacksonville. They threw the ball 41 times, and now he's playing Detroit, who might have a bottom 5 defense in the league still. So I think Wentz is a good plug and play. They're going to throw the ball a lot. Yeah. The problem with Wentz is just like you never know what you're really going to get with him.
Yeah.
And I don't know if he gets you 29 fantasy points again, but I do think he's a good plug and play for this week. And he also has a lot of talent around him on that. The Commanders are surprisingly like a sneaky talented offensive team. If everybody is healthy, ready to go. So I think it's a good matchup. A guy that, if you're in a little bit of, maybe you're in a 10-team league, might not be rostered, is a guy like Derek Carr. Didn't have the best week. Somebody might have dropped him. He's playing against the Cardinals this week, and Mahomes just threw 5 touchdowns against them. I wouldn't mind Derek Carr against the Cardinals. I think that's a good matchup as well. But yeah, if Carr's not there, I think Carson Wentz would be the best stream.
Okay. I also am intrigued by Matt Ryan against Jacksonville this week. He's in Jacksonville.
The Jaguars.
But you might look at Matt Ryan. He had base 16 or 17 fantasy points this week, which is not great. Didn't produce too well, but he did have 353 passing yards and a touchdown. That kind of looks like, I didn't watch the game, and I got to go back and watch that game to see if he looks like Matt Ryan from when they were good. The Falcons, I should say, when he was good like 3-4 years ago. Mm-hmm. But if he's throwing 350 yards and he's scoring more than 1 touchdown, that makes him a decent play. The only issue with him is that he's going to have to throw 250 and 2 basically every week because he provides no rushing floor, which is the same thing for a guy like Winston or Wentz in those particular games. So I don't think that he's too bad. Daniel Jones had 19 points this week, 21 passes, 17 completions. He had 6 rushes for 25 yards.
Danny Dimes.
Oh, bro, I'm not even joking. Like, I saw like Dayball drawing up freaking the play the Bills run where they fake it to Devin Singletary, an RPO, and
Yes.
or not, it's not even an RPO, it's just a straight option, a run option, and they try to give it to Singletary, fake it, and then Josh Allen just takes it for 7 yards. They were trying to do that with Daniel Jones, but the guy was getting freaking torched. Like, he was getting lit up in the middle of the field. And I'm like, bro, Josh Allen is huge.
Yeah.
I know Daniel Jones is big, but like, he's going to get freaking hurt.
If they do that all the time, yeah.
Like, you don't have Josh Allen anymore. You got to control yourself. But I think Daniel Jones actually provides a decent rushing floor. I just don't know how much passing opportunity, how much success the Giants are going to have this year. So he's only owned in 20% of leagues. He could be an interesting, like, Winston, and I think Daniel Jones could be interesting long plays, whereas Wentz and Matt Ryan are good streaming options for next week.
That's fair enough.
Okay. Let's talk about tight ends to get them out of the way. Rick, give me a tight end quickly.
Kind of threw me on the spot. I would say Gerald Everett. He's the top guy available. Let me make sure I'm pretty sure, yeah. So he had a decent week, 14 fantasy points. He did have a touchdown. He only had 4 targets. If the Keenan Allen injury is legit, he's out next couple weeks. Then you can plug and play Gerald Everett as your tight end too. He's going to be the red zone guy. Justin Herbert, though, in this game especially, I've noticed he spreads the ball out to everybody. He does not have like a go-to guy. Maybe Keenan Allen when he's out there, but he really spreads it out a lot. Mike Williams will have his weeks, but then he'll also have weeks like he did this past week. So Everett would be a good play. I think if you really need a tight end to plug and play, it's kind of tough out there though. Not gonna lie.
Oh yeah, if you didn't get your tight end, we don't know what happened with Noah Fant, but he is also on the waiver wire rostered in 37% of leagues.
Yeah.
That is not my selection.
Again,
but
recording the show before Monday,
right.
Monday night.
But Noah Fant, if you need a tight end after week 1, watching the catastrophe of not drafting a tight end, Noah Fant, not a bad option.
He's gonna get like 3 points tonight.
Right, he doesn't do anything. So if he doesn't do anything, I wouldn't pick him up yet. But if he goes out and has a 9-10 point game, I would pick him up and see what happens. But the guy I was going to talk about that I would target this week at the tight end position would be Robert Tonyan. Packers looked like garbage. I don't think they're going to look great this year, but I also don't think they're going to score 7 points a game. So I think the Packers will be fine. They scored 7, right?
Yep.
Yeah. I think the Packers will end up being fine, but they need somebody to target. Randall Cobb got some targets last night or yesterday afternoon, and so I think the most consistent guy that they have now that has been there is Robert Tonyan, and I think that as the weeks go along, you're going to see either Rodgers start to get more comfortable with the receivers that they have. Obviously, Lazard will come back, but I think there's going to be target share there for Robert Tonyan too. So he's only rostered in 21% of leagues. I would try to go out and get Bob Tonyan before week 2 and see what you can do with him. He also has an easier matchup against Chi-Town, who, oh God, I want Justin Fields to win that game so badly.
It's Sunday Night Football.
Isn't that the football team where Rodgers scored a touchdown in Soldier Field and said, "I own you"?
Yes.
That would be wonderful if
it's in Lambeau though, so I don't have a lot of hope.
Ripped friggin' Rodgers' soul out, and then said, "I own you." Love it.
I'll be rooting for the Bears, but I think the Packers are going to win that game.
But I would target Bob Tonyan for that matchup. It's a good one, and I think he does have decent long-term.
I want to say Tonyan was second on the team in targets this week.
Yeah, something like that.
Let's see, Aaron Jones had 5, and I think AJ Dillon had 6. Okay, so AJ Dillon had 6, Aaron Jones had 5, Tonyan had 5, and I think Romeo Doubs had he had 5 as well. So there was a lot of guys in that mix, but Tonyan was right there, and he had a potential touchdown that Rodgers threw to him in the end zone, and the pass got broken up. But he was looking for Tonyan, and Tonyan didn't even play the whole game because it was his first game back off a torn ACL. They said they weren't going to push him too far. So he actually looked pretty decent considering that. So he wouldn't be a bad play. I am interested to see, though, what it looks like when Lazard comes back.
Mhm.
And Tanyan's going to be a guy that gets like 6 points one week, then he'll get you 16, and then he'll get you 5 the next week. Like he's going to be
Which honestly,
inconsistent,
for a
but
tight end, is okay. Like
I
if
know
he gets 6
it's
or
not
7
it's
points,
not awful. It's really not awful.
especially like when he only had a 36% snap percentage, which is curious. But yeah, I mean, if he's getting 6-7 targets a game as the season goes along, I'm totally okay with that. And like, yeah, I just when you're talking about waiver wire tight ends,
Yeah.
5 to 7 targets a week is good. So we'll just have to see. I mean, he had 36% snap percentage and 5 targets. If he got up to like 60, who knows? Maybe that doubles. Maybe it moves up
True.
to 8, and we're fine. But Tanyan's definitely a guy I would take a look at. Let's talk about running backs. Break down this. There's some very, very interesting players, interesting situations. I feel like there's a lot of guys that we should talk about, both running back and wide receiver.
Well, let's just do your favorite for running back, and then
Okay. All right. Rick, why don't you start with your favorite?
okay. For me, it's got to be Jeff Wilson. He's number 2 on this list, but I think he should be number 1. Elijah Mitchell, the injury to him, I think he's going to be out. The latest report I just saw was a few weeks, so who knows what that means? That could mean like 2, or that could mean like 7.
Yeah,
So
and it could go either
I don't
way.
know. It depends what it is. But if Mitchell misses any time, like let's say he misses 4 to 5 games,
Mhm.
you can plug and play Jeff Wilson as your RB2 potentially, or flex if needed, because all the offseason reports was saying how much the 49ers and Kyle Shanahan like Jeff Wilson. He won that second job.
Mhm.
And now with Elijah Mitchell out, I would expect him to get the first crack at it. I always have trouble trusting Kyle Shanahan, which is the one thing in the back of my mind. But a healthy Jeff Wilson in a potential offense is going to be better than what it was against Chicago, even if you don't like the 49ers. I don't think they're going to do that in the horrible rainstorm in Chicago. But they got Seattle this week. Should be a good matchup. And then Denver isn't great. And then the Rams, Panthers, Falcons. So there's a couple good matchups in there if Elijah Mitchell ends up missing a few weeks. And I think he's got the best option of the guys who are probably available in your league that you could just pick up and start right away.
Okay. Yeah, I definitely like that one. You're probably right about that guy being number 1. Should be at least the number 1 running back target. I will say don't, and I'll tell you who my guy is in a second once I figure out who it is. But I would say like Brian Robinson right now is owned in 43% of leagues. I wouldn't pick him up yet. Gibson looked good in the game against Indianapolis, who has a good rush defense. So, I mean, he could earn his job back over the first couple weeks of the season, and he's also hurt. Like, so I don't like if you want to roster Brian Robinson this week and then put him on your IR slot and wait until somebody comes back, that's fine. But I don't know that I need to run out and add Brian Robinson. I think he's going to end up being a guy that gets dropped for other players because people start realizing they need to get guys on their team to play. I'm going to say I like Kenneth Gainwell.
Okay.
Yeah, I think Kenneth Gainwell is pretty good. He the rushing attack for the Eagles was very interesting. 4 different players had a rushing touchdown. I don't count Jalen Hurts, so I'll take him out. So 3 running backs on the roster had a rushing touchdown. But Kenneth Gainwell has a couple of things. So it's clear that if they get into the red zone, they are going to have some sort of opportunity to score. So I don't know if Kenneth Gainwell is going to hold that role, but they don't have a clear, concise, like, okay, this guy's our running back in the red zone.
No.
As much as you would assume it would be Miles Sanders, they don't have that. So Gainwell saw 30% of the snaps, which isn't great. He had 20 rushing yards on 5 attempts, 4 targets, 2 catches for 12 yards. And then he had that touchdown, which made his week look way better than it was. But he basically had 9 opportunities in the game with attempts and targets. So, it's not great, but I think this particular player is a good upside play. We know Miles Sanders has dealt with injuries. He's had problems with that all season. The Eagles like to run the football. And I don't think that on a week-to-week basis you're going to see A.J. Brown get 13 targets a game. It'll probably be right around 8 or 9. So those targets are going to get redistributed in different areas. I would roster Kenneth Gainwell as a speculative ad. I don't have a whole ton of like running backs on this list that I'm like, okay, I'm going to run out and grab. So
Yeah.
running back position is hard. The only other guy that I was speculating on was Jaylen Warren. The major issue with Jaylen Warren is that Najee's injury doesn't seem too horrible. And it sounds like he's going to play this week against New England. So if that is the case, then Jaylen Warren becomes a complete waste of space on your roster, and you're wasting waiver budget on him. So I don't know that I would add Jaylen Warren this week if Najee is active. He has no fantasy value whatsoever if Najee is active.
Yeah, I wouldn't. Yeah, I mean, I think this is based off expecting Najee to miss a few weeks, which I don't think is going to happen. Even if Najee's out, like, I would rather start Jeff Wilson than Jaylen Warren, because Jaylen Warren's up against the Patriots, which had a decent defensive showing against the Dolphins.
Yeah.
And I don't think the Steelers' offense is going to really do much, and I think they might even use like Benny Snell as well.
Yeah. Yeah, so I wouldn't waste waiver budget on him. Like, there are going to be some people who run on the waiver wire and dump a significant chunk of waiver budget on Jaylen Warren, and I just wouldn't do that.
One guy I'd mention, keep an eye on, and I almost picked him up in our home league this past week, but I didn't. It was Khalil Herbert.
Did he get opportunities? I didn't even check his numbers.
He outperformed David Montgomery, so it's something that you need to keep an eye on. It wasn't like he was great. Montgomery, I think Montgomery had more opportunities than Khalil Herbert, but Herbert, it wasn't a split. I want to say Montgomery had 17 carries and Herbert had 9.
Mm-hmm.
So Montgomery is still the guy there. But Herbert looked better. I mean, Herbert had 9 carries for 45 yards.
Yeah.
5 yards to carry. Dave Montgomery, 17 carries for 26 yards, 1 yard per carry.
Yikes.
1.5. So Herbert is someone who you should keep your eye on. And then that's pretty much it. I know a lot of people are going to be on the Rex Burkhead train this week.
Yeah, I was just about to bring up his numbers. If I could type.
Would you pick him up?
No.
I mean, he did have a lot of work.
I will say, my goodness, I think the Texans just did that to say frick you to the entire fantasy community, to be honest with you.
I think so too.
I almost, because I was drafting Dameon Pierce in the 10th round, and he literally, I think in our home league, got drafted in the 6th round. He flew up.
And the 6th round was like, I saw drafts where he was going 5th and 4th round, like even 3rd.
It was getting absurd, and so I was like, this is too much for this player, and I almost find it funny that he had the opportunity that he had, and Burkhead went out and had 14 carries, mind you, for 2.86 yards per carry.
Rex Burkhead, baby.
He had 5 catches for 30 yards. Yeah,
and post game, they said he was asked about that, and they said, well, basically the situations that we were in, we feel like Rex Burkhead was better in the past, like in the passing down situations.
Yeah.
Which shouldn't be a good thing for Pierce, because the Texans are going to be in a lot of those situations all season.
Yeah, right.
So Burkhead's going to get playing time this year. I think maybe in a deeper league you want to pick him up, PPR, sure, but I mean, he's not like someone I'm racing to go pick up.
Right. All right. These are your running backs. Let's talk about some wide receivers that we can target. And Rick, why don't you start with the first one?
You letting me lead off, huh?
Yeah, dude. You're making it hard on me.
I gotta take
come up with
the guy that I wanted to draft late in drafts, and I did a little bit, but not enough. Jahan Dotson, bro.
Nah.
My boy.
Gross.
I know you're gonna say gross. All right, I know.
I think he has long-term value.
He was the starting receiver. Curtis Samuel is kind of like their Deebo Samuel a little bit, and then Dotson and McLaurin are their 2 guys. And Dotson had not only had 2 touchdowns. It's not necessarily the touchdowns, because he only had 5 targets, 3 catches, 40 yards, 2 touchdowns. So like, it wasn't necessarily like his statistics. It's just the way he looked. In his second touchdown, he beat a guy on one-on-one coverage and made a diving catch in the end zone. The first touchdown, he ran a perfect route, got open, made a great catch, kept both feet in bounds, touchdown. He's just a really, I think, solid wide receiver who's going to get the opportunity. And we all know rookie wide receivers are usually, I mean, outside of Jamar Chase last year and Justin Jefferson the year before, don't really do too much the rookie season. However, will show flashes and could go on runs like Elijah Moore, Brandon Ayuk, T. Higgins his rookie season. Like these guys do have bursts in the season. And I wanted to draft a rookie wide receiver late. I took Garrett Wilson because he was just there in the 12th round. But I think Jahan Dotson was the guy that at least through week one you could have been targeting. And if he's available in your league, I mean, he got drafted in our league in the 11th round, 12th round. So if he's available in your league, he should at least be rostered without a doubt. I'm not saying that he's going to come out here and you should spend all your waiver budget on him. And he's going to start at your flex week to week. But I think he should absolutely be there's no point that he shouldn't be rostered.
Yeah, I agree. I think the fantasy production that he had was mostly tied to the 2 touchdowns. If he had not scored those 2 touchdowns, then you would be having a conversation about Jahan Dotson. You know, we probably wouldn't even have been talking about him today. So, obviously those 2 touchdowns happened, and if they like him in the red zone, then they'll go to him. And obviously you see these breakout weeks for rookie wide receivers. I like targeting youth on the waiver wire earlier in the season because if Dotson's scoring fantasy points earlier in the season, that would lead me to believe, and especially if Carson Wentz's quarterback play is not horrible, and he performs, he didn't even have to perform on a week-to-week basis like he did this week, but just not completely suck like the past quarterbacks have. Dotson has upside. So I agree with Rick. I would definitely roster him in some way, shape, or form. If he's on your waiver wire, I would target him. The guy I would target this week is DJ Chark. Surprisingly, he's only rostered in 45% of leagues.
That is interesting.
That's an interesting number. But he had 8 targets this week, 15 fantasy points, scored a touchdown, 81% snap percentage. Obviously, Amon-Ra's there. You obviously have TJ Hawkinson. Like those guys are probably going to be the main targets on the team. But Chark was still able to get a heavy target share. The Detroit Lions are going to be playing from behind. It's as simple as that. You're not going to see the Lions have a big lead.
Probably not.
So, with that being said, Chark is going to get targeted probably around this amount on a week-to-week basis. And I think a player with that many targets, even if it was slightly inefficient, is worth rostering. So he should definitely be on your roster. And if he's on your waiver wire, you should run out and pick him up now. Another guy that I do find interesting is Jarvis Landry, who's old as dirt and bound for an injury any week. But he did have this week 9 targets, 7 catches, and 114 yards for the Saints. Doesn't have much touchdown upside, but in PPR formats, he does provide good performances if he does get targeted like that. I don't know if it'll stay consistent, but I do like Jarvis Landry. I do think he should be an ad. I wouldn't dump a ton of waiver budget, but I think Jahan Dotson's the guy that I would dump.
There are
a lot of waiver
2 guys though that I am looking at, maybe even 3, that I want your opinions on. First, I'll say Robbie Anderson. Yes or no?
Robbie Anderson, I would say.
He had 8 targets, 21 fantasy points, 5 catches, 102 yards, a touchdown.
It seems like
he had more targets than DJ Moore.
It seems like my boy, what the heck's his name? Terrence Mitchell.
Oh yeah,
dead.
Terrence Marshall's dead. Yeah, he's 100%
Terrence
dead.
Marshall, is that his name? Terrence Marshall. God, I don't even know his name anymore.
Marshall.
I don't know.
He's so dead.
He's dead. So with that being said, last year I thought maybe there was this upside with him. If he's not going to be targeted and he has no involvement in the offense, I definitely think Robbie Anderson's worth an ad. Yeah, why not?
Okay, yeah, I agree with you. I think he was the team's leading target. Sad for DJ Moore again. It's never going to happen. It seemed like he had a decent connection with Baker, which is funny because he didn't want Baker on the team. So I agree with you there. I would add Robbie Anderson. Curtis Samuel, yes or no? Another Washington player. So
No.
So I kind of agree with you, but I kind of don't. Because Curtis Samuel,
Remember, Carson Wentz threw it 41 times.
I
Which is not
do
gonna
understand
happen
that,
on
and
a
I
weekly basis.
don't know if his target share is going to be that high. But in those 41 attempts, I believe Curtis Samuel led the team in targets. He had the most
friggin'
receptions,
way.
at least. And he had 4 carries for 17 yards and was playing out of the backfield for some plays. So he's
Isn't this
definitely
the first
getting
game
used a
Curtis
lot.
Samuel has with this team? Or
Yeah, he played. I believe he played in like 2 or 3 games last year, but he was hurt the whole season pretty much. This is the first game that he's been like 100% healthy, ready to go, and he got involved. He had more targets than Terry McLaurin, another one of my guys. It's just sad, but and Jahan Dotson.
you and the
So-
Jets and the Commanders, man, the terrible football teams in the NFL.
I know, but I'm just saying. I'm just looking at the evidence in front of me. All right, I'm not telling you this is what I wanted.
I'm gonna change my opinion. Curtis Samuel's worth an ad.
Actually, and to be completely honest with you, I might change my opinion as well and say that Curtis Samuel over Jahan Dotson for an ad,
Okay.
which might be a hot take because Curtis Samuel might get hurt any given week.
Yeah.
But while they're out there, I feel like Samuel's.
I
gonna
just
be
don't.
involved.
The question is this something that, like, because I think I don't necessarily disagree with you. I think Curtis Samuel could be the second wide receiver on the team.
Mm-hmm.
So if that's the case, then a guy like, Jahan Dotson is the third guy, and his performance is an anomaly. I think he's young and he has upside, so I would.
I
rock
think
him
as
ahead.
the season goes on, maybe Dotson kind of overtakes Samuel
That's
as the
probably
number 2
why I
guy.
would add Dotson, but I mean Curtis Samuel is 26 years old. My question is, when they have a normal week where Carson Wentz throws
Right.
32 passes, is Curtis Samuel going to get targeted 11 times? Is Terry
No.
McLaurin going to get targeted 8-9 times? Is Jahan Dotson
Maybe.
going to get targeted 7-8 times? So it's
Yeah.
like I just don't think all of these guys are going to be involved in the passing attack, especially
not.
when you haven't even factored in Antonio Gibson or Jordan Thomas. This is tight end's name, right?
Logan Thomas.
Logan Thomas. Thank you. Wow. Changing people's names. But like, I just think with everyone in that offensive passing attack, like there are certain guys that will take hits. Now the question is Curtis Samuel one of those guys? Because if he's the number 2 guy on the roster at the receiver position, and they clearly wanted to utilize him like in a specific plan. He had 4 rushing attempts, 11 targets. So I mean, that could be good things. I definitely think it's worth an ad. I wouldn't dump all my waiver budget on it, but yeah.
Fair.
Change
And then last guy I'll just bring up because I am a little torn on this one, probably leaning one direction, but Romeo Dobbs.
Okay, you weren't
had
even going to
more
bring up
targets
Devin
than-
Duvernay.
Oh,
thought
I
you were
forgot
bringing
about
up Duvernay.
I'll let you do that one. Romeo Dobbs, though, real quick, yes or no? He had 5 targets, which was tied with Robert Tonyan for the lead. He had more than Watson or Watkins,
How many
but still
targets?
only
5?
5 targets. Yeah.
Did he do anything?
4 catches, 37 yards, 8 fantasy points. So not really. But was better than Watkins and some other guys.
Yeah, I think for this week, I would hold off on Packers wide receivers. And I wish I could tell you like a projection of who I think is going to be the guy. But
Honestly, after week 1, I don't know.
there's no
Rodgers spread it
information.
out.
Yeah,
He gave everybody a chance.
So, and I think as soon as Lazard gets back, this is going to be very
Yes.
similar
Yep.
to a situation where, Lazard's probably going to get, now that I've seen what it looks like, as soon as Lazard gets back, he's going to get like 10 targets.
He could.
Easy.
He
So-
very well could.
As soon as that happens, I think that either Christian Watson, I don't even know if Christian Watson and Romeo Dobbs are going to be options this season.
I think one of them will. I just
Because I think
I don't know.
he'll pass it to Randall Cobb or Robert Tonyan. Like, as soon as he gets an option back,
True.
he's going to take those 5 targets to each of them.
But
and say,
Rodgers,
"Frick you,"
the
and
game
give
that
it to
he
Lamar.
had, he's not going to have that bad of a game rest of the season, arguably. Like
I know, but
he's going to have games where he gets like 3 or 4 touchdowns.
Dobbs'
So one of
5
those guys
targets,
is going to.
and Christian Watson's 5 targets are all going to Alan Lazard next week. Unfortunately.
Yeah, maybe.
I would just wait. I would just wait on Dobbs and
Fair.
Watson.
Yeah, I don't hate him, but I'd probably pick up the guys that we talked about before.
All right.
Yeah,
The
Devin Duvernay.
The last guy that I would bring up, because there was also Sterling Shepard talks, and not interested at all in this player.
Really.
He had 4 catches, 2 receptions for a touchdown, and that's why people were like, "Oh my God, Sterling Shepard's back!" And it's like, no, stop it. Devin Duvernay, owned in 16% of leagues. He had 2 touchdowns in the game on Sunday against the New York Jets. But his, which I think a lot of people are going to be like, "Oh my God, Devin Duvernay," and they're going to run out to the waiver wire and add him. It looks like he's a second receiver on the team for the Baltimore Ravens. So that is something. But he had 4 targets, 4 catches, 54 yards, and 2 touchdowns.
Yeah.
I would not add him. He only played in 52% of the offensive snaps. Like, I just wouldn't add him. I think he was just there in the place at the right time, in the right place, in the right timing, and was able to catch 2 touchdowns. I mean, freaking Lamar's got to throw it to somebody. So, I think this is going to be a guy that maybe has a couple of good weeks on the year, but just based on opportunity, I'm not excited. Worth a speculative ad, like in case it turns into something. But I don't. I right now I'm going to tell you as a prediction. I don't think it's going to turn into anything. But I would add him speculatively.
That's fair. Yeah, I think he's probably the number 2 guy as well. But Lamar spread the ball out a lot in that game as well. So I don't know. You take away the 2 touchdowns, he didn't really do much. But I will say in that I think it was the first touchdown. Was a really good catch, and it kind of caught my eye because I thought it was Bateman. I got happy, and then it wasn't. I was like, wow, that was actually a pretty impressive catch down the sideline.
Yeah.
So I would definitely keep your eye on him. But yeah, I think that's everybody, right?
Yeah, it sounds good to me. Week 1 waiver wire is very interesting. There's not a player I see here that I'm like, wow about. So
you're not spending 100.
Looks like, I'm not spending 100
your waiver budget.
We'll definitely see what happens next week. We got Thursday night preview tomorrow. Be sure to check it out, guys. See you later.
See you.
Thank you for listening to the Fantasy Champions Podcast. Make sure you subscribe on iTunes and YouTube and follow us on Twitter @TheFFChamps.